Olivetti by Allie Millington. The first chapter Friday, read aloud video and author interview with Word Nerd. Today, as you listen, play along. Watch for the story quote that will appear on screen. Write it down, word by word, and then follow the directions given to you by your teacher. Make sure you stick around all the way to the end to see if you've written it down correctly. And one more thing before we get started today, I want to give a shout out to Ms. Dyer's students at the Hollywood Academy of Arts and Sciences in Plantation, Florida. I'm so glad you guys are here today and excited for you to listen in. Hi, my name's Amanda Zieba. Welcome to my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd, and another First Chapter Friday video. This week we're going to be reading from Olivetti by Allie Millington, and not just that. After I read you the first introduction, chapter 1, chapter 2, because they're really itty-bitty short, we're going to get a chance to talk to the author, Allie, all about this book, but specifically about her narrator, which might be one of these. So make sure you stick around for that. Let me first tell you what this story is about, and then we will dive in. Being a typewriter is not as easy as it looks. Surrounded by books, notorious attention hogs, and recently replaced by a computer, Olivetti has been forgotten by the Brindles, the family he's lived with for years. The Brindles are busy humans, apart from 12-year-old Ernest, who would rather be left alone with his collection of English Oxford Dictionaries. Once a collector of words, now Olivetti only collects dust. He gets a rare glimpse of action from Ernest's mom, Beatrice, his used-to-be frequent visitor, only for her to drop him off at Heartland Pawn Shop and leave him behind. When Olivetti learns Beatrice has mysteriously gone missing afterward, he believes he can help find her. He breaks the only rule of the typewriterly code and types back to Ernest, divulging Beatrice's memories stored inside him. Their search takes them across San Francisco, chasing clues, dodging a dumpster diving girl, maybe committing a few misdemeanors. As Olivetti spills out the past, Ernest is forced to face what he and his family have been running from, the everything that happened. Only by working together will they find Beatrice belonging and the parts of themselves that they've lost. I have loved this book, and I know you guys are going to as well, so let's get right into it. Olivetti by Allie Millington. I'm going to read you the introduction, chapter 1 and chapter 2, and believe it or not, we're going to get all of that done in like 10 pages. The introduction is from Olivetti's perspective. It's quite possible you've never spoken to a typewriter. This is not your fault. Humans tend to think we can't understand them, but when you sit still for long enough, there is much you can learn. I should introduce myself. Yes, I do have manners. I'm very well-rounded despite my sharp corners and squared shape. I'm called Olivetti, but that's nothing more than where I was made. Typewriters aren't given names the way humans are, the way books are. Do not get me started on those attention hogs. Many of my kind are called Olivetti, yet I am one of the few who are left. Most of my friends have gone extinct. We are like our own breed of dinosaurs, except no one goes digging for our fossils. Things would be very different if only our breed could roar. Chapter 1, also from Olivetti's perspective. It's possible you've never seen a typewriter before either. Most young humans have not had the pleasure. What is this thing? I'm often asked when children meet me. They'll move their hand over my steel frame, searching for something that isn't there. Where's the screen? It looks like a broken computer. I find this highly offensive. Typewriters have much more character than one of those know-it-alls. Have a look for yourself. See what I mean? Well, we might make it look easy. Being a typewriter is no picnic. Of course, I've never actually been on a picnic. No one has ever invited me. This might be because I do not have a mouth, which seems to be picnic prerequisite. Humans type out words on us, stories, love letters, rants about members of their species. Sometimes they spill their secrets all over our keys. Our silence makes us trustworthy. So far, I've kept my word, which is to say, I've kept every word ever given to me. Every story I've stored. It's an important job, being a protector of memories. Memories are like heartbeats. They keep things alive. They make us who we are. I hold many heartbeats for the Brindles, a copper-colored family with eyes as rich as ink. Ever since Beatrice pulled me from the clutches of a cardboard box years ago and set me on her desk, the Brindles have been my home. Beatrice always told me everything, and I always listened. She'd sink into her tattered blue chair, and her feather-like fingers would flutter across my 4 rows of keys. I want to try. It is my turn, the 4 Brindle children would beg when they were much younger, climbing onto Beatrice's lap. They'd reach their sticky, snotty-covered hands at me. In my line of work, you're frequently smeared with various unidentified substances. See, my loveliest, Beatrice would say. All the letters are right here. You can recognize them, can't you? Instead of teaching them to spell with pen and paper, Beatrice taught them on my keys. They typed their names again and again, squealing when my fresh ink smacked on top of the crisp page. Ezra Brindle. His fingers were thick and clumsy, slobbering. Madeline Brindle. Hers were smart and quick, each punch like a pinprick. Ernest Brindle. His were soft and unsure, as if he didn't want to hurt me. And Arlo Brindle. His were slippery, stained, and always misspelling. Fingers are as distinct as personalities once you get to know them. I've kept even these moments, along with countless others the Brindles have forgotten, because much like their own heartbeats, humans do not always remember the memories inside them. The human species, you see, is full of flaws. Breakable bones, scratchable skin, the daily need to defecate. But the worst one by far is that they grow up. Chapter 2, Olivetti. Over the years, my space on Beatrice's desk has slowly been invaded. Stacks of books surround me on every side. For unfathomable reason, the Brindles have collected shelves and shelves of them and still insist on bringing in more. It's baffling, I tell you. Yet to the intrusion of needless novels does not compare to the glossy show-off who stole my spot front and center on the desk. The laptop. Felix, Beatrice's husband, bought it for her as a gift without warning. This thing has tons of storage for all of your files, Felix said. I was not familiar with what files were, but I certainly had more storage. In fact, I had unlimited storage. I had an endless amount of memories inside me, not to mention I was much more low maintenance. I did not need to be constantly charged or connected to some higher power called the internet. All that seemed to matter to the Brindles, however, was the fact that my neighbor had a screen. I watched as instead of fighting over me, 3 of the children battled for the computer, and the 4th I hardly ever saw. He'd pass through the living room, always on his way up to the roof, always with a thick red dictionary in his hands. Reading that thing won't help you make any friends, Ernest, Adeline said, reclining on the couch. Her eyes left her phone only long enough to roll at her younger brother. You actually have to socialize with humanity every once in a while. Ernest, unlike his siblings, did not spend much time with other humans. He fraternized mostly with hardcover spines, but I tried not to hold that against him. That's enough, Ada, Beatrice warned from the kitchen, stopping Ernest on his way out the front door. They were almost the same height now, though it was difficult to tell. Ernest's head was always bent forward, toward the ground. Beatrice watched him, waiting to see if he might speak to her, something he hadn't done all week. Arguments were common among the Brindles, but never between Beatrice and Ernest. Go on, I urged Ernest from across the room. Speak. His lips remained stubborn, in a straight line, refusing to split apart. Humans take their mouths for granted. I would do anything for the chance to say anything. Felix entered the apartment, his briefcase thumping to the doorframe. Move the meeting to Tuesday, then, he instructed someone in the small white intruders lodged in his ears. Work stuff. Almost done, he mouthed to Beatrice, a phrase he said so frequently even I was tired of it. And this was coming from someone who had once shared a shelf with a broken record. Felix disappeared into their bedroom like clockwork. The rest of the Brindles behaved like machines, too, doing the same predictable things they did every night. Ernest went to the roof. Ezra, Adeline, and Arlo left for their various activities, and Beatrice remained alone in the kitchen. No one was around to hear the shrill, needy cry of her phone, begging to be answered. No one saw her face flash as white as paper before she breathed out a shaking "Hello?" No one saw her rush out of the apartment. No one but me. if you want to find out what happens next in Olivetti, pick up a copy from your school library, purchase one from your favorite local indie bookstore. I got this one from Barnes& and Noble. Or you can always grab it via the Amazon link down in the video description box. Thank you so much for joining me for this first chapter Friday. I hope you will come back again for more. Before you do anything else, make sure you stick around so you can hear my conversation with author Allie Millington. Alrighty, readers, here we are with a real treat. We're going to get a chance to talk with Allie Millington, author of Olivetti. Allie, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I always love talking about books. So thank you for having me, Amanda.
You're welcome. My viewers know that I'm from Wisconsin. Where are you tuning in from today?
I am tuning in from Atlanta, Georgia, where it's already very summery. Um, so, yes, feeling very hot down here.
Not quite yet in Wisconsin, but they promise we'll get there eventually, one of these days. Okay, so my first bookish question for you is where did the story seedling or spark for Olivetti come from?
So I actually was given my first typewriter just a few years ago by my husband, kind of as a way to encourage me along in my writing journey because I'd gone through years of trying to get published and facing a lot of different rejection and disappointment along the way. And so he gave me this typewriter as a way to say, I believe in you. I believe in this dream that you have, and I don't want you to give up. And it was actually the first time I'd really sat down and used a typewriter. And I was just so in love with that process right from the get-go. And as I started typing on the keys, I began wondering, who else has typed on this typewriter before? It's
Yeah.
from the 50s, 1956. And so, it's seen a lot of different things. It's had different owners. And so I couldn't help but wonder what kind of stories and memories this typewriter had held. And the more I typed, the more it almost felt like my typewriter wanted to tell me all of those things that it had been storing up. And so the story for Olivetti really came from a what if question, which is what if a typewriter could type back? What would it have to say to humans? And what could we learn from these old machines that are sort of forgotten about in today's world? So that's really where it all began with my one typewriter. And now I'm happy to report I have many typewriters that I get to share and bring around for different students to use and bookstore events. So it's been fun getting to collect them.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that is such a cool thing. And I hadn't thought about this until you just started talking, but like as humans now we're a little bit more used to like machines talking back to us than we perhaps were even like a few years ago. And so it's just triggering all sorts of thoughts in my brain. But one of my favorite parts about this book is that Olivetti, the typewriter, actually gets to take a turn being a narrator throughout the story. And I loved that. I love unusual narrators. And so I have a few in my head, but I'm curious, who are a few of your favorites, like unusual narrators that you've experienced in stories? Kind of maybe like Olivetti, maybe different than Olivetti, but you know, those characters that we're not really used to hearing from it, we're expecting to hear from.
Yes, yes, I love this question. I'm always drawn to books like that as well. So one that sticks out at me right from the get-go is The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak, which he's one of my all-time favorite authors. And the narrator there is Death, which you find out on the first few pages. And I think he did it in such a beautiful, compelling way. I also really love Catherine Applegate, who writes in the middle grade space because she's always telling stories from unique perspectives. And one of those stories is called Wish Tree, which is told from the perspective of a tree, which I found just really, really fascinating. So if you're into unique narrators, I would say definitely add that to your list. And then, of course, I love A Rover's Story by Jasmine Warga, which is narrated by a Mars rover. So I'm really thankful that I feel like I've been able to just learn from and collect a lot of different books that have to do with unique narrators.
Yeah, absolutely. The Book Thief was the first one that came to my mind as well. And when you said a rover story, like to me, perseverance is like a real person. Like
Yeah,
you get to know her like a friend throughout the story. And so when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. She isn't really a person. Just because we get to know her so well throughout the story.
right.
Um, you mentioned this a little bit early on when we were chatting about that your writing journey took a little bit longer than you were hoping,
Mhm.
and that along the way that you collected a few rejections. In fact, you turned it into the rejection collection. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about that and like how you kind of turned that idea of no around into something else and used it as fuel rather than like as a stopping point.
Sure. Yeah. At first, when I started submitting my books and getting those rejections, it came as a shock. I obviously wasn't expecting that, but I quickly learned it's part of the process, no matter what creative field you might be into. Rejection is just something that you face. And so I struggled with disappointment and feeling a little bit confused because for so long I felt like this was my dream. What I was kind of made to do is to become an author. And so I just wasn't, it didn't add up why it wasn't working out right away. But what was really interesting is that the more rejections I started receiving, the more almost affirmed I was inside that this is what I need to be doing. And it almost gave me a grittiness and a tough skin to say, this is my dream and I'm not going to let anybody else determine it for me. And I'm really the only person who can decide whether or not I give up. And so I decided I'm just not going to give up, no matter how many rejections it takes or how many years that it takes. And one thing that I started doing was creating my rejection collection, which is where every time I did receive an email rejection letter, I would draw a little doodle or make a poem, just as a way to keep creating art, keep doing something with the gift that I feel like I have been given inside of me, sort of like a small act of defiance. I'm going to keep using my words, going to keep creating and putting stuff out there, even if it's only for me to see. And that really, I feel like that encouraged me a lot along the way, and also eventually was able to encourage other people along the way too, because I had hundreds and hundreds of rejections. So I had all these doodles I was able to send out to other artists or authors who were feeling the same way. And it was just really special to connect with people through that and realize that I'm not the only one facing this. This is just part of the process. It's something that connects people who are creative, people who make art. And so just realizing that I wasn't alone and it was something that really fueled me as well.
Yeah, for sure. And in my opinion, no isn't the worst answer. No might be like a not yet. But I would much rather get a no than no response at all. Like,
Yes.
a no feels like disappointing, but at least they respond. It's when people don't
Right.
respond at all that just is like really soul crushing.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I'm thankful that I had a lot of people in my life who encouraged me too. And that's what led to my husband buying me the typewriter. And that's what turned into Olivetti. So I know none of that time was wasted. It was all for a purpose. And I learned so much about myself along the way and who I wanted to be as a storyteller. I feel like I really discovered my voice through all of those different books that I had to write.
Yeah, for sure. I think that sometimes when people think about writers, they think that writers like just spend a lot of time by themselves in their office or at a coffee shop with earbuds and not paying attention to the rest of the world. And then it's just like this very solitary pursuit. But when I was looking at your website and reading your bio, you were sharing things like you've gone to multiple different countries and all around the United States, like working with students and visiting schools and like doing and going and all of this and it was because of writing. So if someone were to say like writing is boring, you always hang out by yourself, what would you have to say to that writer?
It's funny because even when, before I was published and I was just writing on my own, I never really felt like I was on my own because I had my characters, as silly as that might sound, but to writers, you understand that feeling of you're creating these characters, you're spending time with them, you're getting to know them. And I felt like they're my friends in a way. And so I never truly felt alone in that. And I think the same can be said for just reading in general. You know, it connects you to people whose lives are completely different than yours, connects you to these authors that you've never met. And one of my favorite things about getting to write now, knowing that my words will be shared with other people, is just that I'm able to have this bond with them. You know, being an author is such an immense opportunity because I think about influencers or people online, you know, you get a little snippet of people's attention, but then they might be scrolling or moving on. But when you're an author, you can hold someone's attention for hours. You know, you're
Yeah.
able to share what's important to you, the things that you care about, your values, the things that you want to pass down to younger generations. And I just find that so beautiful. And it's why I try to be so mindful and really thoughtful about the way I write because I know what an amazing opportunity is just to hold somebody's attention. And so it's been the most rewarding thing seeing that how my words or anyone's words honestly can just connect me to them. It feels like readers get to know a little part of my heart, a piece of who I am. My personality goes with all of my books, you know, and so the same can be said when I hear from readers. They feel compelled to share their stories with me, especially, you know, young readers too, opening up and sharing how they want to write one day and the things that make them excited about reading and writing. These are just some of the most rewarding things that I've ever experienced in my life. And so I would definitely say writing and books in general are just one of the things that connects us most as humans because we're all storytellers, right? We all love consuming stories. We all love sharing our own stories. And so I would definitely say that writing just has opened up a whole new world of possibilities when it comes to meeting new people and making new friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Okay, I forgot. I was like, I forgot my last question. I gotta check, but I remember now. Um, Even though you love using typewriters, um, do you shy away from modern technology as a whole? Like, do you do your writing, all your writing on typewriters, handwriting, computers? Like, as an author, like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, so in the beginning stages, when I'm first discovering a story, I do try to stay away from technology. I'm pretty old-fashioned, and I think that using a typewriter or writing by hand makes me feel it connects me with my childlike self, especially writing in journals, because that's just what I grew up doing. That's where a lot of my stories came to be, and there just feels like there's less pressure, you know, when you show up to a computer and there's a blank screen, that can be intimidating and you feel like you have to have all the right words to say. But with a typewriter or writing by hand, you just have a little bit more freedom. It feels playful, and that's a really important part of my process. So I definitely shy away from technology a good bit in the first draft. I actually have a writing shed in my backyard that has no internet or power or anything, so it's where I kind of lock myself away from technology, and that's where I love to create. But then eventually, when it does come time to, of course, edit everything and type it on my computer and then do a lot of research as well, I'm obviously using the internet for that, reading a lot of books wherever I can to sort of fill in those gaps of things that I just can't make up on my own. So technology, it does play a part in my writing for sure, much to my typewriter's dismay. But yeah, I love encouraging people to try out typewriters because it's a really fun way to get to break into writing if you're ever struggling with how to start or, you know,
Mhm.
it being intimidated by the blank page.
Absolutely. I can type faster than I can think. And
Yeah.
so for me, handwriting is a way that just like slows me down. And so like I know what's coming next before I get to the end of the sentence I've just written. And it feels much more like a flow as opposed to like a start stop and like just very stilted when I
Yeah,
type. So I get that. I
absolutely.
get that.
Yeah. We're also very quick to edit ourselves on computers, whereas
Mm-hmm.
Typewriters, there's no delete key on these older ones that I have, and same for handwriting. You could scratch something out, but it's still there. And I think it's really important not to edit yourself in those beginning stages because you just don't know. There might be a gem in something that you at first thought was a mistake. And I think it's important to hold on to those things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can like as you edit as you type it into like a document for the but it's really like a second draft, right? Like you
Right.
can yeah, so it's I don't know. I agree. I'm on the same page as you with process. So,
That's
okay,
awesome.
before we go, Allie, can you tell us what you have coming out next or what you're working on now? And then also, if readers have more questions for you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so my second book actually just came out a few weeks back. It's called Once for Yes. It's another middle grade novel told from the perspective of an old, grumpy apartment building named the Odenburg and all of the different tenants living inside of it. So if you end up enjoying Olivetti, you might really like Once for Yes as well. And then my first ever picture book comes out May 13th. It's called When You Find a Hope, and it's actually a story that was inspired through my rejection journey of becoming published and feeling hopeless at times, having this hope that I was holding on to, but then it was crushed and kind of asking, what do you do with a crushed hope? Can you ever put it back together again? Will it ever be the same? So when you find a hope is sort of an exploration of all of those feelings. So that is what's up next for me. And if readers would like to get in touch, whether it's questions or about a school visit or anything like that, they could find me on my website, which is just alliemillingtonbooks.com. And I have a contact form where you can reach out to me or you can send a letter to Olivetti, the typewriter, who will respond back to you.
Oh, that is amazing. I will make sure to link all of those things, including the pre-order for the new picture book, down in the video description box. So you guys head down there and get those. Allie, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for such a beautiful story. I'm excited to read. I'm excited to read the others.
Thank you so much. I loved this conversation. Hope readers enjoy Olivetti and the rest of the books.
Awesome. All right, readers, we will see you again next week for another First Chapter Friday video. Happy reading.
Bye.
Today's mystery quote said, "Memories are like heartbeats. They keep things alive." Did you get it right? Let your teacher know if you did. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd. I hope you come back again for more First Chapter Fridays, like all 200 of these ones you're seeing flash across the screen. They're ready and waiting for you to give them a try. Teachers, make sure you check the video description box for a whole bunch of First Chapter Friday freebies. And then everybody, like this video and subscribe and come back again. I'll see you again next time. Happy reading.